Dyeing and printing are a part of textile finishing operation. Dye stuffs and even many non-dye stuffs are basically chemicals that are hazardous to health and safety and thus must be handled, transported, stored and disposed with care. A well-planned safety program is required to be implemented by adopting suitable risk assessment of process and operations, preventive and protective measures, hazard communication, and training of staff and managers. In this training video, we will get to know hazards related to dyeing and printing and its control measures. The hazards associated with dyeing and printing are the pressure equipment operating at high temperature with fire and explosion possibilities, engulfment with steam, boiling liquid and hot water, use of flammable substances such as petroleum spirit or oxidizing agents. Generated loose fiber and fire dust may be ignited into a major fire. Some reactive dyes are toxic and carcinogenic. Strong acids and alkali like sulfuric acid and caustic soda are very corrosive and can cause serious burns. Let us now take a look at some major risks to safety and health. We will begin with safety in handling and storage of dye stuffs and other chemical. Dye stuff, non-dye stuffs, and several other chemicals may result into chronic and even acute ailment. That is why, at every stage of operation, necessary safety measures must be adopted. Here are some control measures. Efficient local exhaust ventilation must be adopted. And when high-speed mixers are run, the dry dye should be welted out and stirrer blades must be covered beforehand. Separate storage areas are needed for dye stuffs and other chemical which require frequent washing and cleaning. Smooth walls and impervious surface on the floor but not slippery are the requirements. Powders are to be transferred carefully to avoid spreading into the atmosphere. Requisite personal protective equipment like protective coveralls, gloves, head covering, footwears, and respiratory protective appliances must be worn. These PPEs are not costly. Safe storage and handling of chemical includes non-compatible chemicals, live oxidizing and reducing agents, acids and alkalis. Flammable and combustible materials are to be separately stored from one another, duly labeled, away from direct sunlight, heating sources, better in a cool, well-ventilated storage space built with fire resistance materials. When peroxide bleaching solutions is used, before transfer, it must always be diluted. Necessary temperature interlock and operational control systems are to be in place. Let us now shift our attention to measures during textile printing. Textile printing involves some specific hazardous situations which must be countered with appropriate safety measures such as for roller printing, Coop's rollers need to be engraved using some strongly corrosive substance like nitric acid and ferric chloride solutions which need specific precautions as readily available in material safety data sheet to be followed. Ensure that laser is de-energized before access by anybody via suitably interlocking covers and shields to avoid injury to the eyes and electrical risks. Apply local exhaust system at the engraving end to remove given off fumes. As a protection from UV, light source is to be suitably shielded or enclosed, say using dark colored curtains positioned outside the enclosure. When printed fabrics are in ovens, flammable solvents pose risks of explosion, for which explosion relief measures are recommended, preferably on segregated oven top. Finally, we glance through safety for pressure equipment and high temperature machinery. High temperature and high pressure both pose serious hazards for which a well-coordinated, controlled, and disciplined SOP is required to be in place and practiced. Before the door of the vessel, after loading is closed, all dirt and spillage are to be cleaned from the meshing parts. Ensure that the door is well seated in the groove. Check and ensure that in both open and closed positions, the engagement of the locking device is even and complete over the entire circumferences of the cover, and the door locks well each time. Pressurized dyeing machines pose problems when operators draw samples. The sampling devices is to be interlocked to ensure that it is deep pressurized before it can be opened to remove the sample. If the machine does not have integral sampling device, the machine must be stopped in mid-cycle before the main lid is opened. It is important here to ensure that the liquor is cooled and inside pressure is relieved before the sample is taken. The rim of the liquor vessel is to be at least 900 mm above the floor or the working platform to reduce the risk of fall. OHS measures improves on work quality and employee retention.